All right, so this is the super exciting time for us at Equity Archive. Okay, to come back together and to hear your thoughts from the past 2 days. And for those that are kind of new to this, for us, this is important because we usually get all of ideas that we take forward over the next year to try to help. Is this coming in and out, or is it just? Okay. It's like my vision after seeing the eclipse. I couldn't tell what was broken, my eyes or my voice. So anyway, but we're going to take this information and we'll end up creating some priority action items for us all to stay in touch with, and then come back together next year to kind of see how we did. So I just want to encourage each group as you come and present to kind of keep that in mind. And
Stan, don't grab the bottom. You gotta grab the top. You gotta shut it.
not like this.
Just a little more.
Okay, just like this. Or maybe there's a different microphone, but.
The unit's way on that side of the room, so we'll see. You might be losing signal.
Okay, so we'll see if it is. All right.
Sorry.
All right, so let's start off with group 1. Over here, right? Okay, and whoever's presenting, do reintroduce yourself and stand tall.
Hi everyone. Actually, this is kind of tricky. My name is Ryan Duran. I am the Senior Assistant Director of Conservatory Admissions at Oberlin Conservatory. I use he, him pronouns. And we were part of Group 1. I was part of Group 1 with these amazing people here. And we talked about a couple of things. The first being the feasibility of certain initiatives and programs. And so I just want to kind of give a review of that. Okay, so the first kind of category of ideas was related to information. The first bullet point being the possibility of participating in virtual and in-person informational presentations and one-on-one consultations. And we all agreed, coming from various different backgrounds and institutions, that this would be something that would be doable, given that it wouldn't be such a huge lift. And there was general consensus around a willingness to present information to help prospective students and their families to share information that would help each other and help students make an informed decision. So, you know, either hosting or sponsoring events such as the college fair like yesterday would be something that schools would be able to easily participate in. The second bullet point was to collect and curate informational colleges each year that puts all information into one branded format. That is easily updated each year. And we again thought that would be something that would be pretty doable. And the information could basically include the same information that was collected for our college fair through the form that was sent out, right, from Equity Arts, with the addition of adding resources for students of color on our campuses for schools, as well as audition requirements. As we know, sometimes certain schools have very specific requirements and students are preparing all of this repertoire for various schools, and sometimes it's only just for one school, and so having that in a collected space would be really helpful for both institutions in their planning as they're updating their audition requirements, as well as for students to figure out how to navigate that. And then the last bullet point was to meet annually as needed to discuss the needs of our fellows who are preparing for upcoming auditions and ways we can improve the initiative each year. And again, I think that was something that we agreed would be something that would be doable, and especially including audition repertoire requirements as part of that. We decided that in terms of meeting annually, there is a group that does this kind of already for admissions folks, the Music Admissions Roundtable, and we could utilize some of the models that they use in terms of providing comprehensive lists and discussion topics to support our students. So that kind of covered the information. The next kind of area was access. The first bullet point there being sponsoring campus visit programs, providing access to staff, faculty, dorms, and dining facilities for a true multi-day college experience. Something that came to mind in our discussion was that everyone on a college campus is an admissions officer. It's not just the folks that work in the admissions office, but it's also the faculty. It's also our students. It's also our staff, right? Now, doing a multi-day college experience would be tricky, so I think we discussed having a lot of flexibility in that, so that various institutions could adopt something that would work for them given their constraints and financial limitations, because flying people to California was something we discussed that might be expensive, right? So definitely think it's something that is important and impactful, but would definitely need to be tailored to each institution's kind of context. And we talked about a couple of obstacles in that as well in specific, but I think in regards to time, I'm just going to move on to the second area, which was this is hard. Actually, could you? Thank you. I just need to scroll right back up. Thank you. Alrighty, here. Providing opportunities to support alumni of this initiative, again, bringing folks to campus to interact with future equity arts, as well as L System and USA cohorts on campus and in their local communities. And we discussed other kind of national programs cohort programs that do this work on college campuses already, such as the Posse program, which, if you're not familiar, is a program that provides full tuition scholarships to students from metropolitan areas throughout the country, and they connect with, in each city that there's a Posse program, they connect with a certain number of institutions. What is really important about this program is that they provide support for students while they're on campus. Weekly workshops, weekly lectures, ways in which that students can connect with the resources on campus. And so we thought about that being a way that we can provide that type of support for alumni of programs when they get to campus. And then lastly, resources. The first sub-bullet point there is to aspire to or meet our financial support pledge of meeting 100% of demonstrated need of accepted students, or providing full need-based and merit scholarships to equity arts and L System USA fellows. Again, much like with the Access program, the feasibility of this would vary from institution to institution, and it would also be something that would be tricky to navigate given the climate created from the recent SCOTUS decision, as well as whatever may be coming down the line. But if it was something that we could do, it would possibly utilize models similar to the Sphinx program and scholarships they offer for students entering in collegiate institutions. And then under that, the second bullet point was to commit to holistically supporting the psychological, logistical, and behavioral needs of each student. We definitely think that would be something that would be doable. It would really be a matter of just kind of making sure that we kind of collect all these resources from across the campus. I think most of the collegiate institutions here have many resources for students. Sometimes it's hard for them to find those resources, and so providing them in one place or bringing those resources to students regularly would be something that we could definitely do. And then the second big point of our conversation, I know it's getting a little long, but I want to keep going. We talked about creating the collective for collegiate study. And we definitely thought about that in a very kind of engaged way. We were asked to think about a potential mission, vision, and values of such a collective. The mission that we came up with was to plan, coordinate, and collaborate across institutions to provide programs to provide opportunities for high school students from underserved communities to connect and engage with higher educational institutions. The vision would be is that we believe in a world where BIPOC students are given the tools to succeed in getting into and through college, as well as providing preparation for the world beyond, regardless of future professional endeavors. Our values, focusing on being student-centered, accessibility, community, collaboration, and connection, specifically thinking of connecting our current students that may have come through equity arts programs or equity art programs with prospective students in programs around the country related to equity arts and our pathway programs. The elimination of barriers, continued support, belonging, and cultivating a culture of respect. And then we were given a couple of questions after that. What's the most important aspects of establishing a collective like this? And I think we realized that there's kind of three parts, and the reason why a collective like this would be so important is because it can help us not only in supporting students to prepare for college, via a lens of recruitment, but also providing resources and support for students while they're on campus for retention, and then offering tools and advice for students pursuing post-college opportunities. All right, that was it for Group 1.
So one thing that really stood out to me was this idea of cohorts, formalizing cohorts and also thinking about a collective. And it just makes me think about how powerful that is for the students and their families to know that they're going through a process, learning about it, many for the very first time, but they're doing it with a lot of support with one another, which is much different than, I'm sure many of us that were maybe one or two people in our youth orchestras that were like really serious about going into music professionally, watching all of your friends gear up for their careers as doctors and lawyers and happy people. Okay, thank you for that. So I'm holding Group 2. I'm not sure if this means like Group 2 disappeared from this table. So this is Group 3 or Group 2?
We have merged.
Oh, okay. We have some rule breakers. So Group 2 and 3.
So we're bigger rule breakers than you realized. Hi everyone, I'm Micah Harrison-Loosemore. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Assistant Dean of Admissions, Enrollment Management, and Financial Aid for the School of Music, Theater, and Dance at the University of Michigan. Try saying that 3 times fast. And I'm just 5 months into my role. Ryan, you were really hard to follow because you all followed the rules. And not only did we merge groups 2 and 3 because half of each table left to go home, but also both groups had very philosophical conversations about the prompts that we received in the same way. So I'm going to do my best to try to share out our note takers left as well. So we I think both groups had some really great philosophical conversations about kind of like why. We had a lot more questions than answers, I think, in terms of what we were talking about. And we're really interested in kind of like what is the thought and the intention behind some of these opportunities. And so we were looking at, are we interested in building a pathway, or connection between Equity Arc and El Sistema, because this is a pool of untapped, incredibly talented students. We had a little bit of conversation with you who came by our group, because it's good for the students or because it's good for the schools. And so what is the intent of creating something like this, so that we can be thoughtful and mindful about the outcomes and the goals. And so we had a lot of conversations about like what the entry point would be, what the outcomes would be, what is it that folks are signing up for, and how can, and also, why isn't it already happening with El Sistema having been around for a while, if there is something that we could offer that isn't there already. So again, way more questions than answers. As we were looking kind of through some of the later prompts, we were talking about financial aid, holistically supporting psychological, logistical, and behavior needs of each student. We had a lot of conversations, again, in both groups going down a little bit of a rabbit hole about financial aid and about student support, especially looking at the different kinds of institutions that we had in both groups. We had some small conservatory programs, we had some very big state schools, and the logistics and flexibility and nimbleness of those programs in terms of what they were able to do. So my colleague here from SFCM, for example, if I may, doesn't have legal counsel. So as we're talking about how SCOTUS is impacting them, for me, right, at Michigan, we definitely have legal counsel. And when I started, I spent the first 2 weeks constantly on the phone with that person interpreting what it looked like. Also in Michigan, we have Prop 2 in 2016, so we've been dealing with kind of the fallout of a similar SCOTUS decision for a long time. So two very different kind of perspectives of what kind of good trouble we might be able to get into, and how the logistics of the politics at different kinds of schools influences the nimbleness that we have to interact with our students and and what they're needing. I think lastly, kind of thinking about a couple of things, we talked a little bit about that arts programs are the front porch of, with athletics, or the front porch of our institutions, and so how can we use that to help the powers that be at our institutions understand what the needs are and provide fiscal support for some of these things. And then we talked a little bit about the resources and whether it's up to a school, using myself as an example, the University of Michigan to supply that support for students in terms of their needs, if it's up to the School of Music, Theater, and Dance, or if it's up to that individual teacher, right, to the private lesson teacher to provide that support for people. And then should they even be doing that, or should it be somebody who's been trained in CAPS and psychological counseling, for example, rather than a private lesson teacher who may or may not be nurturing. So we're talking about kind of the way that the programming within El Sistema is modeled, and then how that is already a through line or should be a through line through to college. Am I missing things? Anything else? I think that's generally it. We talked a little bit about some of the institutions that already exist in terms of admissions, MAR and ICAM, and how we might be able to kind of look at those through. But yeah, you all did an excellent job of following the prompts. So.
And feel free, if there's any reactions to what you are hearing, I'm more than happy to lend you the microphone. But I will say very, very quickly, it does make me think about what Roe Equity Arc could do, for example, in even mapping where some of this financial assistance is going, and if there's a correlation between those financial resources and organizations helping to achieve their own equity goals. So that might be fascinating, and something that could encourage others to say, let's try, on our own locally to build those resources and try to provide similar types of supports. And it doesn't have to all be about finances. It could be about a wide range of supports that are provided. Okay, I like this. 2 and 3 is done. So what about 4? Did 4 and 5 combine?
We followed the rules-ish. Hi everybody, my name is Alejandra. I use she, her pronouns. I'm gonna get really dizzy spinning around, but that's all right, here we go. I am the director for the Ravinia Staines Music Institute, and I was with the summer study group. I'm gonna talk us through just a couple of the highlights from our conversation. We started out talking about the Common App, and actually spent quite a bit of time on the Common App through Equity Arc. The big win for that was that the organizations who participated in the Common App certainly saw an increase in candidates coming through that Common application, which is really great. However, there are some challenges with that. One of them being that some of the applicants just chose every program. And so they weren't necessarily, it wasn't necessarily a program that matched their level, but because it was just so easy to check it off, it got checked off. And then we talked a lot too about the repertoire list and how still with the two separate lists, it doesn't always fit all of the summer studies. I'll use myself as an example. Rabbinic St. Music Institute doesn't currently participate because our need for a repertoire list for applications doesn't fall into some of the broader lists that are currently there. So how can we expand that list? And what possibilities are there so that we can stay within the Common App, but maybe have some more options for the repertoire list? There were some other, I won't bore you with the details, back-end logistics with accepted, and then our own various programs that we use, and just some of like the administrative logistics that really put a lot of extra burden and pressure on the administrative staff of the summer programs, and unfortunately was probably least helpful to the applicants because some information just fell through the cracks there. And then we also discussed the making a universal decision or maybe deposit deadline so that everybody knew what they were being accepted into, and at the same time, so that it wasn't, oh, I got accepted into that, let me go check in with this or this summer study program to see if I'm gonna get there so that then I can make my decision. We didn't come to a consensus on that, but it was something that we recognized to discuss. So that brings me to our second point, which is kind of came out of this Common App discussion, which was around this sort of idea of matchmaking for summer programs, right? And a resource that we think could be really valuable through Equity Arc is a snapshot of the summer studies program, which does exist on the website, but being much more focused and tailored on here is kind of what we expect in terms of the level of musicianship and study for the applicants, right? So that applicants know what level they are. Is this a good match for me, right? So providing just some more clear resources so that the students and their families know what might work for them. So how we can provide that, with a simple like an ideal candidate looks like X, Y, and Z. Which then led to the third point, which was around building some partnerships with some of the pathway programs. Several of my wonderful colleagues at the table, especially those who do pre-college programs, talked a lot about the conversations they were having with parents and families about what it meant for their student to participate in a summer study program, oftentimes a program that was away from home, what that looked like, what the needs are, right? And so thinking about all the work that they are doing to have those one-on-one conversations, how we might better partner with whatever Pathways program they're already participating in, so that that trust that they have established throughout the year with that Pathways program then can be wrapped into that conversation around summer study, right? So that you're having that then with whoever that teacher administrator is within that Pathways program to help the family have that conversation and really understand what it looks like. Somebody gave a great example of the back and forth with a mother about a student, and by the time they finished all of that, they had fully filled up, and so there was no longer a spot for that student, right? And so how to better kind of fast track that trust when it's already established through a pathway program that student may be coming through. We did look at the mission and vision information, but our group, we weren't really sure if we were ready to kind of be formed into a collective of summer study programs. Part of that is because we encompass such a wide variety, right? Pre-college, college, pre-professional, professional. And so with that being so vast, we felt like maybe there's a need for some more time, and also some more time to bring in some of the other institutions to be part of the conversation, some of the other summer study programs. So we weren't quite sure, although we did play around with, is a mission just as broad as saying that, our mission is to bring in more BIPOC musicians to summer study programs. Like, could we take that on? But I think we left that as just still a little bit of a question mark as we keep looking into this and figuring out who our collective is.
The other thought that I've had about partnerships with summer programs is just for the pathway programs. The kids are on kind of a curriculum with their teacher in terms of what they're trying to accomplish before they get to their auditions. And there may also be an opportunity for the faculty person in the pathway program to work with or provide some insights into the person that will work with them over the summer, so that that faculty person is continuing them to work on the things that they need to work on, so that that student's time is used most efficiently and effectively, and not them coming back from the summer program and that teacher feeling like either they may have to undo something or they lost time during the summer to kind of move them ahead in whatever their area of need might be.
Did your group have any discussion about fees? I was in a discussion with one of the Pathway students who was discussing getting into a really prestigious summer study program, summer festival, and but this was after he had already made a deposit, $1,000 deposit somewhere else, pretty extensive, but couldn't get that deposit back. So he's really happy to be able to go to the more prestigious opportunity, but just wondering if that that came up in any discussion.
It did not, and I suspect it's, again, because we're just... It did not. And I suspect it's because all of our programs, at least from the table, the small table that we had, are so different. What does that look like when we, have a larger group, and that whole issue around costs, deposits, non-refundable deposits, and why we have that. I have a lot of thoughts on that. So no, we didn't, but we should the next time we gather and have that conversation for sure.
Great, and I also thought about, if everybody is trying to get these musicians on their campus in the summer, do we have an opportunity to rewrite some of the rules? So for example, like through the Common Application, most students are working on one, maybe two different sets of repertoire. Do we say there's just a set of repertoire we're going to do? And if you want these students, for example, listen to a Price violin concerto, you should still be able to learn what you need to learn in order to make your decision. So do we have an opportunity maybe to push back through numbers and even through using technology to collect this information, profiles on the musicians, and then the camps are coming in to try to maybe more invite them to apply or invite them to come to their program. So it just makes me think about how do we collect some of this energy and maybe use that to bring about change. Group 5, the mega group back here. Somehow everybody ended up in this group.
Yes, thank you. We're the group of Access and Inclusion. We're very large. So we're Group 5. My name is James Hall. I am the project director of the Chicago Musical Pathways Initiative. Yeah, we had a lot of voices present in our group, and we spent a little while talking about just taking stock and becoming familiar with the various ways in which our Pathways programs are structured. There were 8 Pathways programs represented in our group, ranging in age from 2 to 40 years and budget sizes from 200 to a little over 700,000. Ranging also in staff size from like 1 to 5 full-time staff members. Some organizations also had part-time staff members in the mix. We also have various ways in which we leverage partnerships with other organizations. Many of us have advisory councils or steering committees where we get strategic input from our partners. Some of our organizations also have fundraising or development committees with development representatives from other organizations. We take various approaches also to fundraising. So some of our programs are complete standalone entities. Some of them are also housed within larger organizations. Some of our organizations are, all the fundraising is done by one entity, and in other organizations, there are partners who fundraise for different students that are shared between the partners and the Pathways program, or they fundraise for various aspects of the program, like private lessons or ensemble participation. We talked also quite a bit about the role that professional development has played for our Pathways staff with trauma-informed practices, anti-racism, training being pretty typical mainstays, and then more interesting and unique trainings that are specific to different cities and programs. So Baltimore mentioned revamping the professional development and including an aspect that requires faculty and staff to go on a tour of Baltimore and become familiar with the idiosyncrasies of that city, which is something that was of interest to a lot of different organizations within our group. We also have organizations like Nashville, like Accelerando, that has been really successful in getting all of the faculty and staff trained and paid to participate in training, and other organizations where getting 100% participation has been more challenging. So we talked a little while about that. One of the other prompts we had was what commitments we would ask administrators in later ARC stages to make for the benefit of Pathways alumni. And we were fortunate yesterday to have a representative from the League of American Orchestras with us, and who mentioned that there are discounted member rates that our students can take advantage of, as well as like workshops on marketing practices and other resources that we can start to leverage. We talked about the ways that we, on an organization level, stay connected to our alumni. So the Peabody Prep mentioned that they have alumni now who work as staff members and faculty members. They also commit to the preparatory at Peabody commits to sending some of their Pathways students to a mentoring program that was started by alumni. Accelerando has invited alumni back to perform with the orchestra, and some other things that I am having a hard time reading right now, but so a lot of different strategies taken. We talked also about sustainability and fundraising, and we talked for a while about the various degrees of success that we've had cultivating like individual donors. So many of our organizations have talked about just needing to bring more people into the tent and getting more people involved in making annual gifts. Let's see, we talked also about the collective approach and the things that we can rely on Equity ARC to help us with. So one of the things that we talked about was how nice it would be to think big about other opportunities you might have to congregate the children from our various programs, and also include faculty alongside of those students so that they can understand better the work that we're doing and exchange ideas with each other. There's a lot of excitement around doing, having Equity ARC organize teacher training for our faculty members. There was an idea also about possibly commissioning a piece that is performed as the culminating event of a gathering or a convening of students. We talked about also the benefits and questions we have about being part of the Pathways Collective. So there have been a lot of instances in which we've had opportunities as Pathways managers and directors to like share ideas, and in some cases even share workshops that have been virtual, inviting other students from different programs into those things. We talked about also needing to have more clarity around like exactly what is a Pathways program, and that's a big question in terms of what other people outside of this work need to understand. Like, first of all, they just need to understand what a Pathways program is. And I'm trying to find that page of my notes. I apologize. I've been kind of flipping back and forth a little bit. Yes, I'm so sorry, I lost it. Okay, here it is, yeah. We think it would be very helpful for Equity Arc to help us develop clear descriptive language around Pathways programs. We also talked about the tension between the outcomes that prospective funders and former funders have wanted to see around like attention and student outcomes, and the things that we focus on within our Pathways programs. And yeah, in terms of other things that Equity Arc can do to further leverage the strength of the collective. Tracking alumni success stories is something that can be helpful when we are making like a pitch on the national level to prospective funders. Tracking graduation rates for our alumni, like who actually makes it through college into the first steps of their professional career. Implementing best practices in terms of like mentorship interactions between students and staff or students and faculty, finding different and deeper ways to engage parents within the collective of our programs, and offering more local workshops for students and faculty as well. Was there anything else that I missed that you discussed? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I figure I'm gonna have to hire half of you to help with all this work. But it did make me think about what it means to expand capacity within our own organizations to get this type of work done. Even things like, what might we have to give up in order to make room and space for a lot of that. And I did start thinking, one thing as an organization, we have felt that it is too early to start creating maybe standards or expectations when you talk about some clear language around what success looks like, knowing that some of us are just at the beginning of our journey in doing this. Others have been doing it for 42 years. But what does that look like? Platinum level, gold level, silver. Okay, man, I've been flying too much. Okay. We're actually going to move to group 9 because the presenter has to, I think, go to an airport soon or something. Oh, our phone call. But still, we're going to skip a couple of groups to go to group 9. Is that okay?
Good afternoon, I'm Sarah. I am from the Music Band Foundation, which is based in Los Angeles, California. And our fantastic group had a really robust conversation about everyone's favorite word, sustainability. And so the first key point was about philanthropy's commitment to DEI. A lot of promises were made in 2020, and are those promises still being kept? And what does that look like? And the sentiment at the table was that absolutely those are still being kept, that the commitment is is still there, very much so, and even admission of a bit of a lag on the philanthropy front, that our nonprofit partners were doing it faster and better, and philanthropy is still catching up. But what does that look like? Looks like revisiting values, changes in leadership both at the board level and at the staff level, changes in hiring practices. But absolutely a continued commitment to that, and also a comment that because most of the time in philanthropy they are private dollars, it's not as susceptible to changes in laws that might affect publicly funded organizations. So some reassurance, I think, there. Our second point was about changes in funding practices, so kind of along the same lines, what are changing philanthropy practices, and we had a good long list of those. More multi-year general operating support, more nimbleness in the funding, and by nimble we mean timeliness and responsiveness. I think COVID demonstrated that foundations can move fast when the earth shakes enough, and so a little bit more of that in just now that we're back to sort of a normal time. Clear guidelines, really clear guidelines that help, and I think it probably goes along with a lot of the admissions things too. Like, let's ensure that the right applicants are applying for the mission-aligned funding that the foundations are interested in. Let's sort of not waste anybody's time on either side with applications that don't perhaps have a chance at being funded. Perhaps more discretionary funds at foundations that can help that nimbleness, can help support that nimbleness. Funders working together, and we're always interested in the sector collaborating more, but funders collaborating more and walking the walk. Also, some ideas about, I think it was called grantee care, and there was a question in this morning's questions about switching the onus from the family having to know everything to ask to the institution carrying more of that, and I think sort of board of that in philanthropy as well, that it's the burden not being on the institution to share what the expectations are. We talked a little bit about systems change and leveraging local support for national initiatives. We talked about funding matches as a great way to incentivize and engage local funders, leveraging local events. We also talked about a great idea of inviting, and when we say local funders, we mean funders that are in each of the pathways programs, but bringing all of those together in sort of a funder learning opportunity that would coincide with or be on a concurrent path with the summit to really just build the brain trust, to share examples of the good work, and I think it would deepen the investment on the parts of each of the local funders. Lastly, we talked about Equity Arc and what else we can add to the to-do list. and agreed that Equity Arc, the role is not necessarily one of a sub-grantor, but that it can be a conduit to smaller programs and smaller organizations, that it can be a thought partner to foundations that are interested, foundations or individual donors that are interested in this work, kind of a trusted partner to those that are interested in Pathways funding, and that potentially we got into talking about, could Equity Arc, through its fundraising, perhaps solve like a travel, lodging, airfare, and be able to leverage the collective to help solve some of that in the sector. And that's it. Okay.
Awesome, so just want to pause if there's anybody that also wants to add to what we talked about in terms of sustainability, inclusion, access. One thing that I'm super excited about is the idea of bringing our funders together on a local level to also be here to experience and be inspired by what the students are doing, but also what they're saying. For them to also understand that they are part of a much bigger collective, but they are part of a much longer journey than they think they might be funding or part of. And I think that could be quite powerful. From my knowledge of many of the pathway cities, you really have like a handful of champions in your local community that are funding the initiative. For those that have an initiative that is an organization like Project STEP or Primavera Fund, for example, that is its own standalone organization, I know that your respective teams are working really hard at building, fundraising plans that are just for the work, not necessarily those that have initiatives part of bigger organizations where you might get a slice of fundraising attention and support from your larger institution. So that could be very encouraging. But we also want to do that in a way where they feel safe, that they can hear directly from administrators about pain points, or hear from the parents or hear from the students about additional needs that we can also put on the table, that we aren't perfect, we're still growing, we're still trying to improve. So sometimes, that can be a little tricky to navigate, having honest, maybe even sticky conversations, or times where there's important feedback, critical feedback, maybe constructive, critical, important feedback, to get back to those funders as well. So it's just an idea we kind of want to throw out there and see in preparation for our time together a year from now, if that might be of interest, of maybe every pathway program committing to bring one or two of their maybe most committed funders or soon to be committed funders to be kind of part of us developing a track just for philanthropy, to be part of the conversation. Okay, so to get back on track. Group 6.
All right, so we're gonna have to follow up the mega group. We are all from Pathways programs representing DC, Chicago, San Antonio, Atlanta, Philly, Boston. So we talked about our values, and student success is a top priority for us. Creating community, creating community of like-minded individuals, giving kids agency. I'm so big on that, like, you've got to do the thing. Like, this is not school. You're not required to be here. You want to do this, it's in your hands, and we will give you the tools to do that. And naming who this is for. Those who are from underrepresented backgrounds, we really want to be intentional, especially because a lot of our programs have varying differences on who we accept into the program. So making sure that's very clear on who these programs are for. And so the 5 components that we thought together that really creates a Pathways program. 1, really high quality structured instruction for private lessons and being culturally responsive if possible. We know that isn't always possible, but that's what we strive for. The jury and advisory process is very, very crucial to keep our students on track and also our faculty on track, making sure that they're doing right by our students. Having a structured way of having them commit to music in college. Like in DC, we have it, by your junior year, you've got to be committed. We have a 3-semester plan. It's very clear for all of our students, you want to take this path, these are the steps of how you have to get there. Family education on the field of classical music, having the parents have access to what the mentorship is, career workshops, training about college auditions for our families to let them know, because it's not just the students committing, it's the families with driving them places, making sure that their kids are practicing, giving them the space to practice, and also financially. And lastly is high level of performance experience, from their lessons to their ensembles, recitals, summer camps, going to see the orchestras in their communities, chamber ensembles, all of that, having access to high level performance is very key. And so talking about the collective approach and what we thought were strengths that we have, and with Equity Arc as well, we want a student and alumni database. We know that's coming, which is great. So I think that will be really helpful for the Pathways organizations to connect students. I was just talking because we have a couple of students in our programs that are going to Juilliard, and it's like, okay, great, we can make sure that they get connected, and before they go, they know that they have a friendly face, as well as any alumni who are at these schools, so that they can start that community building before they even step on campus as an official student at these conservatories and colleges. New National Co-ed Music Fraternity for Pathways alums. Sarah was like really excited for this, and I am too. But having something for, nationally at the collegiate space for the students to have community and get to know each other. Having a sort of fraternity for the Pathways alums. Having a shared library of video workshops between Pathways programs so that we're not duplicating the efforts. We are small teams of 1 or 2 or 3, and so being able to share those resources. I know we have been inviting other Pathways programs to our workshops, but then also having a database where all of those recordings are, so that students can access them from previous years, and we can share those resources. Having a community bulletin board for Pathways managers. We have our Slack, which it would be great if Equity Arc could fund having the premium Slack, so that we can look at the post past 3 months, because now it's like after 3 months we can't see it. But then also having more robust space for us to ask questions, post things, post documents. If we're like, oh, I need help with the handbook, being able to have all that information shared, which is especially going to be helpful for any new Pathways. Any new Pathways programs that are coming in. They have a space where they can access resources that have already been shared, and then have the tools to ask more questions, get more resources. I think that's it. Oh my gosh, yes, this is my idea. I've mentioned it before, sprinkled throughout the evening and also in November, but having for colleges a kind of collective college audition experience. Like I know in theater, there's Unifieds, there's something in opera, whether or not all the schools take a tour in different places, or there's a regional Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, Midwest, middle of nowhere, and all of them, and then the East Coast, I'm sorry. But having those geographical places where schools can go and their auditions, so that way families, instead of having to go to each individual school, can go to different regions and hit multiple colleges, I think would be extremely helpful for Pathways programs that help fund for those travels, and then for those who can't necessarily do that, for the families to help alleviate that. And hopefully that would also help on the collegiate level for students who are requesting access to funds to have travel and lodging covered. Hopefully that would alleviate that on the budget side for you all as well. So that's it.
Ever sponsoring? It does make me wonder what the hierarchy of the fraternity would be. What would the violas have to do to get in? So I've been doing this to Sarah all.
Angela, one thing that you said, the last thing you just said about, kind of creating like a shared audition experience made me think of a point that we talked about in our group this morning. I don't know if I have folks here from our group this morning, but it seemed like a good time to talk about, the possibility of having someone within Equity Arc who could do this job of solely kind of collecting information on colleges, because I'm sure all of you program managers know you're already doing a lot, your hands are already full serving the students, but then you're also trying to navigate collecting all of this information about all of these different schools and helping them apply and navigate through the application process. And it would be helpful if there was someone kind of at the higher level who could be that point person for like questions in regards to, you know, studio sizes at schools or audition requirements, or, you know, if a studio is even open, because we talked about how, you know, sometimes these schools will still hold auditions and have no open spots for a particular instrument area. And so maybe in relation to having a shared audition experience, also having someone who could collect that information to share with program managers of pathway programs around the country.
Thank you. Group 7.
Hello everyone. My name is Kiara and I'm the program manager for PMA Artist Initiative, and we're based in Philadelphia. I have been volunteered for my group to present. We had similar prompts to Angela's group, so I hope I'm not repeating too much. But what we started, we had great conversation both yesterday and today, and we talked a lot about what defines a pathway program, and that was a long conversation because it's hard to, you know, only pick 5 essential components. But what we discussed was removing pathway programs should remove barriers and create a pathway to get into college. And we also discussed how we need to be able to name those barriers. That can be financial barriers, or, you know, travel to places, location, teachers, and, you know, support at home can look different ways. Another component that is important in pathways is mentorship. It's a huge part of the pathway work, and I may get back to this later, but we also talked about how we can differentiate the work that pre-college institution versus music pathways do, and how are we different from a pre-college institution. So let's see. Another point that we talked about is access and opportunity within the music pathway programs. I think that's pretty similar across, like, especially pre-college, but we offer a ton of resources like workshop, master classes. We also offer financial support, which is huge for so many of our students. So all of these resources, I think, definitely define what a music pathway program is. And then we also said that it's about being equitable as much as financial help is so much needed and very much appreciated. We found that it was a little hard to define pinpoint what a music pathway is in just 5 points, because it's so individual to each and every student. Something that one student may need is probably very different from something that another student may need, and that could be financial, it could be just like support in general, or just like, hey, please reply to my emails, and just like hand holding a lot, or even just helping with like someone's family, or conversation with teachers. So that was definitely a very big part of our conversation. And then we also talked about what welcoming new programs in the ARC may look like. And we do think that it's important to have a general definition of what a music pathway program looks like. But we also said that more general and broader requirements can be helpful, especially when you're applying for grants. I've never done that, but I thought that was interesting. And then we also said that it's important to capture the mission and the intention behind each program. Even though they may we have so many different programs here and they all look a little bit different, but at the end of the day, I think we all have very similar goals. So the requirements may vary, but we just need to look at the intention behind it. The resources offered by the program, I think a big conversation was how, like a music pathway program does not only offer music lessons, and there's so much more that goes into it, as I'm sure everybody knows here. So, the resources, like I mentioned, could be workshop, master classes, the juries, I think Angela mentioned. We said that only taking lessons or only offering lessons should not be, is not enough to be define yourself as a music pathway program. We also talked a lot about musical excellence, and that was like a huge topic, and I will not say everything that we said, but that could look different from program to program, or could mean something different from program to program. I think we talked a lot about, musical excellence in each program and what that looks like, and how our goal is to prepare students and give them the tools so that if they do want to pursue a career in music, when is the time for them to choose to do so, they are competitive. And it's not, to do something to go to top schools, and it's not just, I can't do it, I didn't have any of these resources available, so now I'm not able to do what I really want to do. So we also talked a lot, in regards to musical excellence and about what we prepare our students to pursue in college. And we talked a lot about also, if it's just a performance major or music education. As we know, there are so many realms and so many careers that we can do with a music degree. And I know that some of the programs put a big emphasis on music performance, and so we just kind of dove into that conversation and see, can we open the, the arc a little bit, or do we want to keep it strictly performance? And that, I think, it ties also into musical excellence and being very competitive on your own instrument, so that you are eligible to go to the school that you want to, and then eventually to go and do amazing things with your degree and your education. We also talked about collaborating more across, with other organizations across the ARC. I think a big conversation we had was how we, we definitely collaborate. I find the program managers meeting we have every month super helpful, especially because I started 6 months ago and I was very confused at first. But they're super helpful. It would be, I think, terrific to just expand that a little bit more and have conversation with our colleagues in the college division of the ARC, and then also in the early education or early music education of the ARC. So just really expand it, and this may dive into my point later, but I think something that's really great about the equity ARC, I think, does really well is bring everybody together at a summit like this one, where we sit at tables with people with totally different titles, and we just get to tell them what we see, and we hear what they say, and it's really amazing. And then another point we talked about was, what does it mean to be part of a collective? And I think what we discussed is that it's basically having people that share the same mission and as you do, and collaborating with them. I think I mentioned the program manager meetings, but just in general, having a network of people. And I know that we are all from across the nation. We're spread out, but it's really nice to just share our mission and know that all over the nation there are people that have your same goal, and we are all doing the work and walking the walk. So it's really rewarding. The success. We also talked about the successes of the Pathways Collective, and we said that the National Pathways Festival Orchestra is a success. The students are having a great time, so not just because they're having fun, but because it's such an amazing experience for them to get to play with professional musicians, working with Mr. Guerrero, our students are, enthusiastic, so it's really a success. I think I mentioned this, but bringing all of the administrators together, it's amazing, and you just get to have such great conversations, and you get to meet so many people and see so many people from your past, and it's just really a good time to bring all the things that maybe you have questions about, or just pick someone else's brain on how to fix something. So it's really awesome. And another thing we talked about is we were just talking about collaborating amongst like Equity Arc and across the Arc, but we thought it would be really nice if Equity Arc could help maybe younger programs and have program managers that are part of organizations that have been around for 40 or 30 or long time, and maybe help those younger programs and go and mentor program managers and directors so that they can have someone to just like someone to fall back on and ask all the many questions that we have, and someone that has done the work and knows really step by step what needs to get done, at least to lay out the work, and then that will be really, really helpful. The last thing I promised is how we talked about how Equity Arc could create a buy-in process across the Arc, and we just said that to create a buy-in process or program, it could be just tingle into like having benefits as a member of Equity Arc. So it could look like a grant, or I know that it's amazing the summer program application fees that has been super successful. So you have a lot of benefits available to you and to your students and to your organization as well. So okay, I think that's good.
I think our final group.
Hi everybody, my name is Becca Dora. I am a student manager at Chicago Musical Pathways Initiative. So we were also in a pre-collegiate space with our group. We started out by talking about our values that we share and the program attributes that are quintessentially pathways. And we boiled it down to 5 in no particular order. The first being preparing students for further study with an individualized support plan that includes parent education. The second one being screened application process with the expectation of taking private lessons, practice minimums, advisories, student evaluations, and also concert attendance. The third one being financial, musical, and educational support. The fourth one being mentoring and nurturing the whole person, which includes teaching life skills and organizational skills, as well as being able to play your instrument. And then finally, the fifth one being community building. We further discussed, what things should be codified into requirements, and we didn't really come up with anything guaranteed, because we recognize that we're towing the line between being inclusive and being responsive to what each individual program needs, and then also having a focused mission. So we talked about what a review process could look like to see how new and existing programs are meeting these requirements. And we think it would be really helpful for programs, especially new programs, being onboarded into the Pathways Collective to meet with people that have already been doing the work for a while, and then also having there be a review committee of people to just kind of check in with new programs. This could look like site visits or report outs throughout the year. We talked about the distinctions that should be set earlier on, which includes being transparent on the Equity Arc website about which components are Pathways components, and then also educating the newer programs so they can adapt the essential components. gradually over their time in the collective. We also talked about questions we have regarding the future of the collective. It's been said before, but we think it's important to have on staff a centralized college advisor and counseling to match students with college and conservatory opportunities. And then also we were thinking about the idea of possibly the way to include instruments beyond the traditional orchestral instruments in the years ahead. We talked about the collective approach and how we can harness the power of collective action to advance the work of Pathways programs. We've reflected that, this Pathways Summit and the Zoom meetings we've been having were really great for information sharing and perspective sharing. We were talking about being strategic about the summit location every single year so that more collegiate partners from local areas can be involved in the conversations and process. We expressed having more concrete ways to guide our students that are in college if they have musical or non-musical questions, to reach out to like some sort of a navigator position at each school. I said that already. Oh, okay. Then we talked about like the benefits about being in a collective, so shared knowledge, collaboration, data sharing, and then also, many of us work in isolation. We're very small teams, so it's really nice to kind of share out and find community here, and also transparency as well. We reflected on the successes of the Pathways Collective, which have been stated before, but then also the confidence for newer programs to have the support, just hearing on stories of older programs. We also agree that the summer study common application has been very successful, as well as the festival orchestra, and then also the shared information about non-publicized college admission information. And then we also talked about how we can lean into the practice of collaborating more effectively in our work. We were thinking, this once-a-year convention is really nice, but it would also be really helpful to have more regional conventions to keep things going at more frequent times. We talked about student exchanges to visit another city, another college, and things like that. And also, I know it's been said before, but a Pathways shared calendar where we can advertise master classes, seminars, and community meetings. Because we have a lot on our plates, and anything that Equity Art could do to kind of streamline that would be awesome. And also a web page with links to those archived events as well. And then lastly, we talked about, or second to lastly, sorry, buy-in. How can we create buy-in for different phases of the ARC? Let's see. I guess I already talked about this. Periodic meetings where we could talk about this together. That's it. And then, the last thing we talked about is who should be at the table that's not here. We were talking about having college deans be here, college professionals, and also a need for K-12 professionals to be invited and finding ways to attend this as well. So that's it. Thank you.
And I lied, I can't count to 10. This is the last group.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Kozal. I'm a K-12 Performing Arts Curriculum Coordinator, so that was a nice segue to the K-12 world. I'm the Performing Arts Curriculum Coordinator for the Public Schools of Brookline, Massachusetts, and I'm also the proud parent of a Pathway student from Project STEP who's here performing with the Pathways Orchestra. Our perspective was a little different. I was with a group of mostly parents. There were two music educators within the group, but it was a small group of parents. Most are on a tour of Vanderbilt right now with the kids. And we started by saying that there was really consensus among our group that often families and parents don't hear about Pathway programs. And actually a number of us felt like we came to our Pathway programs a little bit later than they originally started because we found out about them later, and we'd all felt like we would have liked to have known about them more. So we started out by talking I should actually start by saying our overarching topics were family engagement and community engagement. So we started by talking about how pathway programs can do broader communication and get the information out. We talked about letting local schools and music teachers know about pathway programs and just the existence of them, creating a database with information of places to do outreach to and share information about pathway programs, doing outreach not just to music education environments, but also to community organizations, perhaps with a focus of neighborhoods with high populations of students of color. Then we had a series of questions. So the first one was, how have you seen the high cost of classical music education impact students' experience and success? And we all felt that cost was a huge factor and a huge barrier. And I know some of us felt that cost should be fully or largely removed from the equation. One person in our group put it that really students should be provided with the same resources as their affluent peers. So obviously people have different economic situations. So, but just kind of creating a level playing field in terms of cost. And then we had a question about, what concerns do we have regarding your students' interest in classical music as a potential career path? There was really only one concern that came up, which was that when they get to a professional level, there may not be enough opportunities for playing in a professional setting like an orchestra. So then we talked about just getting information out. That's come up a number of times, and we heard it from the students about different career paths that obviously performing in being a performer is one career path in music, but there's also many others. One parent just said that she had no concern. She doesn't like to compare this career with other careers. And then another parent felt that her child was their first musician in the family, so they just had no experience and no concerns, but unknowns. And then this will hopefully make everyone in the room happy. It said, what excites you about this path? And we all felt that it leads to a happy, well-balanced life with a great social element and mental health, and that our children love what they're doing. So the next question for us was, how can parents and caregivers contribute to the success of students? And of course, these were all the things that you all know well, is by getting our children to where they need to be, making sure they practice, staying on top of them to follow through with what they need to do, get all their recordings ready for auditions and whatnot. And why is this family engagement important? And we felt that it was important not just to get our kids to know what they need to do and to make sure they're practicing, but to build buy-in and investment and real understanding of what this whole world of music is about. And then the next question was, how can organizations educate families effectively? What does a musical family look like? And we felt that it's really important that organizations meet families where they're at. And we know that some families are really ready to engage. They understand the importance of, again, getting their kids where they need to be and making sure they practice. And others, this is completely new to them. So really meeting families where they're at, supporting the families, and really working with families to educate them about things like balancing their calendars and their schedules and commitments, and not just working with the kids, but really working with the families to develop an understanding. There was another question that was kind of similar. It says, what does exceptional family engagement look like what does exceptional family engagement look like? And we felt that it was, again, not just, it was helping to educate families to how to support their students, and really the why behind the reasons that this music education is so important. Having parental mentorship, so having organizations that work, it can be organization to parent, but also parent to parent. And I will say, as a parent, I know that's been really important to me, to have other parents in the organization really, like, especially when I was newer to it, to tell me, what I needed to do as a parent to support my kid and to help support the organization. And then having a parent group that meets regularly within your organization. And let's see, we're getting close to the end. So what are resources that will empower your students to not only participate in the music programs, but to thrive, excel, and flourish? We felt that music, moral support from families, engaging, again, family-to-family engagement. For our students, exposure to other musicians, both peers and professionals, seeing performances, getting information about the many different musical opportunities, programs, camps, workshops, etc. Teachers and program administrators getting to know the students as individuals, both in regards to and beyond music. And then the last thing, time for students to get to know one another within a program and have time together that isn't only music, but having fun, building friendships and community.